Do it again, let's do it again. Play it, Georgie. I cannot think of this artist today without thinking of that line from that song, from one of his songs in the 1980s. That little background vocal lick always just cracked me up. Too much fun. I think the song was called Let's Do It Again, and that little background vocal, play it, Georgie. Dang right, play it, Georgie. Hello again, everyone. It is Gordon Majak here, back with a Saturday afternoon episode of Timeless Pop, Rock, and Soul. And today, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to keep this episode from just turning into like an hour-long love fest, because I love this artist, and I admire this artist, and I respect this artist so much that I'm trying to figure out how to just keep it short and sweet, and I haven't figured it out yet. Let me show you who I'm talking about before I start running my yapper. God, I love this guy. It's too much to say. 1980 is the year, and there I was. It is the great George Benson and his incredible album, Give Me the Night. Produced by Quincy Jones, of course. Quincy Jones was just coming off of having produced Michael Jackson's extremely successful Off the Wall album there in 1979. And in 1980, Quincy Jones launched his own in-house label there at Warner Brothers, Quest Records. And George Benson, Give Me the Night, was the first album turned out on that custom label of Quincy Jones. And wow, what can you say about this record? And our song, there's George. Our song is Love Times Love. I always love pictures of George when he's got his guitar on there, that big, beautiful hollow body guitar that he's always played. And I would be smiling too if I had 1/1,000,000th of this brother's talent. My God, this guy is so good and so talented. The great George Benson. Like so many people, I first learned of George Benson back there in 1976 when he released this monster album. That, of course, is the Breezin' record from 1976. What a classic album. What can you even say about Breezin', man? This thing still sounds incredible. This Masquerade, the title track, Affirmation, what a record. George Benson, Breezin'. So that's when I became aware of George there in 1976. I immediately became a fan and started digging into his catalog and getting to know his music. A couple years later there, in 1979, 3 years later, he did have another album in between here, but I'm just jumping ahead here. This is his 1979 album, another absolute killer. This was a 2-record set of just some of the most incredibly beautiful jazz, soul, R&B vocals and guitar that you have ever heard in your life. What an album this was, Living Inside Your Love. And this was also the year that I got to go see George Benson. After being a fan for 3 years, I finally got to go see George in concert here in Seattle. And George and his band comes out, and he's got the Seattle Symphony Orchestra behind him. Live strings and the orchestra playing all the beautiful orchestral and string arrangements on these 2 records, and the other album in between there, of course, his In Flight album. But they're playing these instrumentals and these incredible string arrangements and orchestral arrangements from these albums with the live orchestra, the Seattle Symphony Orchestra. And I was absolutely blown out of my chair. I could not believe it. And this isn't even to talk about just what an incredible showman George was, what an accomplished player. Yeah, you want to know how much I love George Benson? He is on the shortest of the short list for me. He's in my top 3 all-time guitarists. Top 3, and he might even be at the top. George is that good, and I love him that much. So there he was, 1979. I get to see him for first time live, and I am just blown away. George and the symphony. He's playing that guitar like I've never seen a human being play guitar. He's singing. I'm just like, how is he not a household name? This is 1979. Well, the next year, 1980, the next album, boom, there he goes. Now he's with Quincy Jones. And as I said, Q is coming off the Michael Jackson Off the Wall album. In other words, he's on one hell of a roll as a producer. Quincy's bringing along his cast of characters, all those incredible session musicians that made the Off the Wall album and every other Quincy Jones album absolutely smoke from a musical perspective. And Quincy and George Benson hook up for the George Benson Give Me the Night album, and boom. My wish there from the year before, how does everybody in the world not know who this guy is, came true, because all of a sudden everybody did know who he was. George Benson album, Give Me the Night, released there in August of 1980. You could say it was a crossover smash, folks. #1 jazz album, #1 soul album, and a #3 pop album. George Benson picked up 3 Grammys from this album. The best R&B vocal performance for the album as a whole. Let me read that again. This is 1980. 1980. Think back to who's on the scene back there in the late 70s, early 80s. George Benson picks up the Grammy for the best R&B vocal performance for the record. Best jazz vocal performance for his duet with the great Patti Austin on Moody's Mood for Love, and a Best R&B Instrumental Grammy for their song Off Broadway, in which George just rips it up on the guitar for about 5 minutes. So, you guys know I'm not a big Grammy person, as it were, but there's one time when the Grammys sure got it right. I was not aware of that till I looked into that earlier today, but there's one time when the Grammys actually rewarded the right guy, because George Benson and this Give Me the Night album, the first song on the album, and what a way to start the record. And if you remember, like me, having this album back there in the day, and you put on side 1 and this is the first thing you hear, man, you are ready to go. And then, of course, having seen George Benson live there, as I said, in 1979 for the first time for this album and this tour, Living Inside Your Love, a couple years later there in the 80s, I was fortunate to go see him again, several times, actually. I've seen George, I think, 4 times. I can't remember exactly. So he comes out and they do their instrumental. They're doing some ridiculous smoking jazz track, right, for a couple minutes. And then when they hit the cue there for the first vocal song, there is a moment, and if you've ever seen George Benson live, I want you to go there in your brain right now and think about this moment. And certainly there are enough videos on YouTube you can see him performing this song live if you want to check out what I'm talking about. But having seen him do it the first time, there is that moment where the song starts and this groove, which is just such a gorgeous groove with all those great musicians, as I said, that Quincy Jones brought over. This groove is just a smoking groove to begin with. And there is that moment where George steps up to the mic with that guitar strapped around his neck, and he is the most confident, consummate pro that of a musician that you've ever seen, and he is in complete command. And there is that split second where he steps up to the mic and grabs the mic and remember, and I almost fell out of my damn chair. What command George Benson had in concert as a vocalist. And certainly I had seen him sing, obviously, in the previous show. But doing a little bit different kind of material on this album with Quincy Jones, that was one of those moments that I just never forgot. Watching him sing Love Times Love for the first time and play some of those incredible support licks on his guitar. And what an incredible vocal talent he always was. And I always believed in him as a singer. I never bought the garbage back in the day that critics used to say, like, oh, he should just shut up and just play his guitar on every record. He should never sing. He's such a good guitarist. Well, all of those things are true. He is an incredible guitarist, one of the great in the world, certainly the greatest in my lifetime. One of the greatest in my lifetime. So yeah, he's an incredible guitarist, but this brother can sing. His vocal influences, I mean, they're everything from Donny Hathaway to Nat King Cole. He's all over the place as far as vocal influences. Sam Cooke, I mean, this is the music that George grew up listening to, and of course all the great jazz vocalists. And that stuff is in his DNA, and he can just sing. He's such an expressive vocalist. And even when people were giving him a hard time about not being enough of a jazz guitarist, as if he could somehow not be enough. I mean, that's comical just to even think that. But even then, you know, amidst all that crap from the critics, his voice, man, what a singer. So let's jump into the song. I told you it was going to turn into one of these episodes where I just want to go on and on about how much I love George, but I just got to let you guys hear the song. From 1980, it is the incredible George Benson, the Give Me the Night album, and my favorite from that record, and it's a great record, so that's saying something. It is Love Times Love. Come on, man, my brother is killing it on that lead vocal. God, what a soulful singer. He's always been such a soulful singer. And in the old days, the record company just wanted him to play guitar. They wanted him to be this guitar icon. mission accomplished, but don't deny us this guy's voice, man. Let him sing. Gosh, and now here comes the guitar fills, right? Boy, those Quincy Jones produced rhythm tracks with all these ringer musicians, of course, all these incredible studio musicians. These tracks and these arrangements are just absolute fire. And of course, it doesn't matter whether you're Michael Jackson or George Benson or any number of other artists that Quincy Jones produced back then. I mean, he just serves it up and gives it to you. And as a vocalist, all you got to do is just let it go and let it rip, because everything else down to the details of these arrangements and the production is just so flawless. Just an incredible sound that Quincy Jones always came up with in this album. Can you imagine? You do Off the Wall this year, and then fast forward, and next year you do George Benson. Oh, and the year after that you do The Dude. Come on. Are you kidding me? Quincy Jones, man. But the great George Benson, and the bizarre thing about all of this is that this is the only album they did together, which is just crazy. But they did this one masterpiece album, and then they went their separate ways, and George went on with other producers, and Quincy got back to Michael Jackson and some other stuff coming down the pipeline there through his production house and his label. But it's just a shame that they never really got to do more together. But as I said, George Benson, man, what a career, what a player, what a singer. George has just got such an incredible level of talent that it's just impossible to deny. And you listen to these songs, and even going back, like I said, to these records here in the 70s, Breezin', of course, his big pop breakthrough there in 76, and this one's Living Inside Your Love from 1979. Of course, he had his great live album, Weekend in LA there. That was in 1978. And some great stuff there in the 80s for George Benson, too, when he got more into the pop and R&B realm. But to me, just such a consummate player. I watch videos of him playing guitar, and I just sit there just dumbfounded how this guy can just be so incredibly good. I hope you guys like George Benson as much as I do. Play it, Georgie. Yep, play it, Georgie. Play it all day long, brother. See you soon. We're coming back with some more soul jazz. Don't miss it. Bye.